delighted to have Harsha Malik as our guest speaker today. She is a young and dynamic leader, and we are going to discuss consumer trends and marketing strategies in alcoholic beverages industry. So Harsha is a head of marketing for No Label, a beverage brand that specializes in alternative alcoholic beverages. Now, it's a ready to drink alcohol market on the back of its distinctive marketing strategy, effective on market trade techniques, and an inventive product pipeline. So, Harsha, we would love to have this interaction on understanding various marketing strategies and other branding techniques that you guys are using or can be beneficial to any alcoholic beverage company or which is trying to position their brand, especially in India. As we see, the consumer trend is changing. Generation Z is more health conscious. They maybe want to go on the lower level of alcohols, etc., etc. Considering everything, where do you see, and where does the marketing and branding activity fit in?
Thank you, Indu, for having me. It's a pleasure. I think everything right now revolves around the Gen Z generation, right? And there are multiple reasons for it. I think it's a very, very different generation from what we've seen before. Millennials were different from boomers or their parents and the upper generation. But Gen Z, I think, have just paved a way for themselves in a very, very different way, whether it is culture, whether it is their choices at work, what they want to do. And that sort of follows into F&B as well. What do they want to eat? What do they want to drink? And it just creates or offers so much curiosity for brands to introduce newer things to a generation that is open to wanting to experiment, that is actively looking for something new. They're not comfort loving. I think this is a myth. And when we just call them lazy or call them too casual and they don't take things seriously or life seriously, I think that's a big misunderstanding, in my opinion, or my understanding. They're very active. They know what they're doing. They understand what they want to do and they go after it. And a lot of times they do not play safe. And that's why it looks like they're too casual and they're not taking things seriously. Right. When we come to brand awareness or awareness about what's going on around them, I think they're the most educated in terms of awareness, so to say, about products, about what they want to eat, what do they want to drink, what do they want to put in their body, on their body, and things like that, right? Um, that's why the generation is just being talked about as much. That is why we're talking about the trends that they are setting or are following, and that paves the way for innovation for brands in that sort of space. Coming to the question, I think you have to be innovative not just with products with them, but how you're engaging, and that's where the marketing strategies come into play. You have enough space to innovate with newer products. Like we entered the alternate beverages section, right? There was a reason we did not want to do things the traditional way. We are a team of millennials, right? But we do not believe in tradition. We do not want to do beers, right? We do not want to do typical spirits. We want to do something different. We want to do something innovative. And that's why the target audience automatically becomes younger millennials or the Gen Zs, right? When we talk about what do we want to introduce or how do we want to innovate, it's not just restricted to नया flavor निकाल दिया या आपने मीट बना दिया या हार्ड सेल्जर बना दिया. It's about how are you engaging with the consumer? What is that new touch point that you have now come up with to engage with them or talk to them or interact with them, right? When we speak of, say, food festivals or music festivals, because you're alcohol, you already have either a retail store as a channel or your on premise as a channel, and both of them are not direct for you as a brand, right? When you go to this space of food festivals or music festivals, you can be present as a brand and interact with the consumer. Now, how you be innovative with that is, are you making an interactive bar? What does the TV play? Is it just the brand logo there? Are you just doing things the traditional way? Or you have a fun ad running? Are you playing some games with them? Are you getting them to interact with your product, not just drinking it, but engaging with them in a fun activity and so on and so forth, right? What is the production value of your bar? When we talk about the generation appreciating and understanding brands who do things differently, it is very, very true for the Gen Z, at least in this scenario. So with marketing strategies, you need to always keep finding newer touch points. I think that's my approach, at least when we say marketing. You can change your activities, but if your channels are the same, then there's little scope of innovation there. You always have to find newer touch points with the consumer. That's one of the reasons why we are in the digital era, because we innovated or came across a new channel and developed it, so to say.
So, that pops in my mind that, alcoholic beverages, especially, uh, have its own challenges when it has to be promoted online or digital promotions or advertisement for that matter.
Yeah.
So, where do you see the challenges are, and what are the alternative strategies which are, which have been used historically? Like you
Mhm.
promote water instead of the direct drink or some
Yeah.
alternatives. So where do
Yeah.
you think the new game changers are using the techniques? What kind of techniques are those?
I think in the digital space, I think content creation is one of them. I think it's the biggest one and the most innovative one, because there is literally no end to what you can do, right? Because alcohol paid promotions do not work as effectively. There are a lot of rules and regulations that you must follow. While you can be out there as a brand, you can't be out there as a product, which defeats the purpose to some extent, right? But the fact that you have your own space, for example, a digital page on Instagram or on Facebook, or you have a channel on YouTube, it gives you that space to directly contact or engage with the consumer there, which is not the scenario with other channels like on premise and off premise, right? So, what you do here is engage the consumer not just by saying, okay, this is how I look as a product, this is the product, or this is the liquid inside my bottle, but this is who I am as a brand. Nowadays, you can create content, position your product very directly, which was a much, much bigger problem in the traditional times, because you cannot promote on TV, you cannot be on billboards, you cannot be anywhere. But now, one, you have that digital space, you can contact or work with creators who you think align really well with your brand. You can have an in house team that can create great content for you that the consumer would want to engage with, right? You leave that space open for the consumer to come to you. It's voluntary. It's unlike a billboard that you will see irrespectively. It's unlike an ad that you will see respectively. By default, right? Not by choice. Here you have to innovate and be fun at the same time for the right target audience, for you to bring that pull towards your brand and not just your product. I think that is the key, at least how I like to market brands. Your brand, your product is the core. Nobody can change it. It has to be the best of quality. You cannot go wrong with your product. That's a given. That's a hygiene factor in a brand, right? But what are you doing beyond it? Because the person will not remember you just for the product, they will remember you for the brand. Colgate is not just remembered for Colgate or how it tastes. It's that worthiness that has been built over years, that this is good for you. And that comes from the name Colgate, right? So things like that, the digital marketing strategies, I would just say digitally that the scope is immense, specifically for alcohol. And I think that's a channel that really opened up a lot of good opportunities for alcoholic brands to engage with their consumer, which was lacking to a great extent earlier.
Right. So, that also, gives me an inquiry of asking about breaking that, nut of that older population, right? So, Generation Z adoptable, right? They are very well aware, they are digitally educated, they follow, they want to try different things. But when it comes to, the older population, they want to stick to the brands that they preferred. So, what and how do you break that, that apprehension and get the entry into that market? Or you have already considered that it's not your market. Is that so, or you're also targeting it?
So, my experience, I will stick to what I have seen and what I've learned with No Label, right? We introduced meat, which is an extremely new category. People have not heard of it, people do not know of it. But whoever so far has tried the product and the consumers that I have interacted with, I've always gotten great feedback for the product. Now, this is across generations. I have had interactions with grandmothers who have tried my product and loved it. I have had it with uncles, if I can call them according to my age, they would probably be above 40 very easily at Aero City beer cafes where they've sat down and be like, this is amazing. It's not beer. They recognize it because they know what beer tastes like. A lot of people don't, right? The younger generations do not know the difference or what ideally something should taste like. It's all perception driven mostly. But they recognize that this is not beer and they like the product, right? So for now, I won't say that we have eliminated anybody or we would eliminate anybody from that pool of consumers, but for you to create a brand or for you to market, and you have to understand the right segment that you will always cater to or you will target, right? For us, that's the younger audience. We're not saying that we are not going to engage with the older folks, not that we will not be at art at an art gallery where these people would come and enjoy my product, but would I actively always make an effort to reach out to them? Maybe no, because I see my suitable market and my suitable target audience is probably the younger generation. It's just a factor of 2 out of 10 above the 40-year would like me, but might be, but probably a 8 out of 10 of the younger audience would like me. So, from a business goals point of view, the younger generation makes more sense. From a product point of view, the younger generation makes more sense.
Right. So we have also seen, like, as we are a market research company and we keep continuing the research on various kinds of drinks and beverages, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, ready to drink. So we have observed that better for you alcoholic alternatives have seen a 20% increase in sales in 21 and 22, right? While low and no alcohol offerings saw only 6% increase in the same period. Do you want to comment on that?
I think multiple things need to be looked at when we talk about these stats, right? Whether there is, when we say shift, are you saying that people who used to have alcohol earlier are now not having alcohol because they think it's better for you in the segment that you're putting it? And when we say people are moving to the low calorie or low alcohol segment, were they drinking higher alcohol before, or did they come? Are they first time drinkers and they just organically prefer a low alcohol product, right? While generationally, I think because, like I said, they are more health conscious, and that comes from the fact that they are aware, right? I won't say everybody is, but because there's so much information out there available, two people knowing about it translates into five people knowing about it, right? There's a reason why so many brands have come up, so many craft brands have come up which serve alcohol between 4 to 5%, right? Kombuchas are a new thing which we
Right.
never heard of, right? Why are these brands coming up? Because there's a recognition, and healthy means something to people now. There's a recognition, there's a demand for, okay, maybe a better alternate. However, I think there's a huge scope, so to say. I think somebody who wants to drink a strong alcohol will drink a strong alcohol product. The shift, how many people when they consume alcohol care about this? How
Right.
many times do they care about it? If they're drinking 6 times a week, are they health conscious 4 times a week or 2 times a week, right? While there is a shift, and it is understandable because people are now started to understand a healthy lifestyle, not just from inside of their body point of view, but just generally, people are more aware about sustainability. People do not like fast fashion and so on and so forth. Now, people who say, I don't like or talk or prefer fast fashion, do they not buy from H&M? They do. So when you come to actually working on ground, I think, I won't say the reality is different, but your strategies, or when you're creating marketing strategies or innovating a product, you just need to see the scope of it. Would I not bring a 8%, 15% in the market because of this trend? No, I would. I probably would, because there is great demand for a 15% alcohol or an 8% alcohol, right?
Right.
I think healthier options are just always there for people who are looking for it, but you can't isolate, or you can't just be like, okay, this is a trend, this is a shift that I am assuming or indicating towards, and therefore I will not, or I will just stick to low alcohol products. For example, a lot of hard seltzers right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of them are above 5%. To the
Correct.
best of my knowledge, none of them Indian hard seltzers are above 5%, 6%. Is there scope of doing a 8%? Yes. Somebody will do it, and that will be called innovation. And people might just love it because now they've developed a taste for hard seltzers, or they've fallen in love with the category. Now, occasionally, why would I not want to enjoy this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second bit, while it might just sound a little contradictory, I think the low alcohol category increase has probably come from acceptance of social drinking, acceptance of day drinking. Does that mean people are not drinking as much at night? No, right? When you are sitting at a cafe during the day in Delhi or northern India, if it's a summer time, why would you not enjoy a light beer? You don't want to be
Right.
hungover during the day. You don't want to
Right.
feel heavy during the day. But why not a casual drink? People, it all comes, it's so cohesive. People are entrepreneurs. The younger generation is working from home, is going out and work, sitting in cafes and working. Why would they not want to drink on the side? Is everybody having coffee? No, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the shift comes from. It's all your habits, your way of living, your way of working, and the acceptance of social drinking that's come into play recently in India. That's why the increase in low alcohol, because day drinking has become a thing.
Right.
People would still drink spirits at night. People would still have cocktails at night.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that's
Absolutely.
the reasons for the trend, is what I believe.
So, interestingly, PepsiCo became an alcohol distributor last year, 2022. And with the
Yes.
launch of their Blue Cloud distribution entity, introducing
Right.
Mountain Dew and Lipton Hard iced tea into the marketplace. So,
Correct.
do you think ready to drink alcoholic beverages anticipated to boom in the coming years?
Uh, I think one, when things happen in the US or in Europe, to the best of my understanding or how I've seen things so far, becomes a trend in India 5, 6 years later, right? But when somebody like PepsiCo does it, there's instant validation for everybody else to recognize that opportunity, right? Because PepsiCo has done it, thousands of people must have put their brain into identifying this opportunity and then entered it. Right now, other people would be like, okay, this makes sense. This person must have made a wise decision, and therefore it's a growing industry. In India, we have seen it over the past 4, 5 years. The data that I've studied when I joined alcohol about a year ago, right? There are so many craft beer brands. There are so many craft gin brands, right? By gin brands, it's not RTD, but so many gin brands are now doing RTDs. They're doing canned alcopop, canned cocktails, and so on and so forth, right? Again, comes from acceptance of casual drinking. You
Mhm.
can't be making a whiskey peg in the day and saying, it's a hot summer day and I'm enjoying whiskey. No, it's socially doesn't make sense. I won't say it's not acceptable. You may have it, but it
Mhm.
doesn't make a lot of sense to people. But if it's a hot summer day, you're enjoying a cocktail, yes, why not? Convenience is so important for people, especially the younger generation. They're hustling, they're moving around, they don't have the time to probably savor a whiskey
Right.
sitting on the rocks. I won't spend 20, 30 minutes on this. I'll probably come sit for half an hour, have 2 pints and leave, right? Therefore, the
Absolutely.
RTD recognition is because social drinking is a norm. You
Mhm.
meet for meetings over beer, right? And this is not just alcohol. Mera to chalo, you can say because you work here, you are doing tastings and you're trying and you're meeting at restaurants where alcohol is served. Normal meetings are happening over alcohol during the day, during the early afternoon, I would say, not even evening. That's the kind of culture that we are seeing. And my knowledge, I'm sorry, but is restricted to northern India markets, right? Delhi NCR, your Punjabs, and so on and so forth, right? This is the trend because most of the younger generation is operating that way. And there's
Right.
an acceptance. And I think the older generation has become to some extent either ignorant to it. People who can't digest that this is happening have become ignorant to it because they can't do anything about it. These are independent people making their decisions, doing their work, earning money by themselves, living by themselves,
Correct.
right? So now they don't have an option but to accept. And the younger generation has stopped caring as much because at the end of the day, everybody is living their life. And I think COVID was a huge game changer for everybody's perception towards life.
Absolutely.
Everybody is just spending how they want to spend. Leisure spending has increased drastically after COVID. Why? Because people appreciate their life. People recognize the need for giving them time, giving themselves this experience that requires money.
Interestingly, COVID reminds me of another interesting question that I would love to ask. If you see US market or European market, the online sales or the consumption of these beverages at home have skyrocketed. But it's
Right.
still a naive or long shot for Indian market. Do you feel that in future we will see Amazon's delivering us something like that?
Amazons, I'm not sure because the Indian government has intense regulations when it comes to alcohol. While we do see home delivery, regulated home delivery as of now, in states like Assam, West Bengal, it's happening in Orissa, it's happening in Maharashtra, it's happening in Meghalaya, right? Um, Pan India, I'm not so sure. Comes from multiple reasons. Um, Strictly from, I think, the kind of audience that we have, the kind of mass that we have, I don't know how much of it could be regulated. And we are regulation loving when it comes to alcohol, so to say, in this country at this point in time. I don't know how acceptable it would be to people, also, not just the government,
Right.
right? To normalize it to that extent. Social drinking is now gotten that acceptance कि आप अपने space में जब मन करे पी सकते हो, whether it is on premise going out there and drinking or sitting at home and drinking a beer during the day or a beer post work at 5. It's now come into play social acceptance for the same.
Right.
But I think people require that kind of regulation somewhere in their mind, given how diverse we are as a country, not just in terms of religion, but in terms of opinions and ideas and ideologies.
Mm.
So I don't see it happen. There is scope because some states have done it, but I don't
Right.
see it's going to be as common as Amazon doing it for us in the near future.
Cool. So maybe I'm assuming a regulated e-commerce site by the government, maybe uh, something like that may happen.
Again, I
That's
think pan India is very, very difficult because state regulation, state excise is different for alcohol. Every state has different regulations. Every state has a different legal drinking age.
right.
So I don't know how optimal it would be for the government to take this up. It's very intense practice to do pan India together. That's why maybe Orissa thinks that this is a good enough place for me to invest. I am probably liberal in the typical sense of our understanding that I will do this, but it's still going to be regulated. I will decide what to do, how to do, and when to do it. When can you drink? How can you drink? And only 8 बजे से 8 बजे तक ही deliver होगा. It's not going to be like you can order at 2 a.m. like on an Amazon, right? So yeah, I am not sure how this would play in the near future. And my near future is maybe 5 odd years.
Mhm, mhm. So it was just a wild idea in my mind that if, government has
Yeah.
this regulatory site wherein, you can click
It would
that
make,
I'm from Orissa, so, set excise duty cut, and then, you have the people
I
and
think
public-private partnership, something like that. I'm just
it would
visualizing.
be very interesting. It would be very interesting. And I think these are places where you find the right opportunities. Thinking from a brand perspective,
Yeah,
marketer's brain is always in how do I leverage this. But if we have a e-commerce site, it's so easy for us to put our product out there
right.
for a new brand, for a new company to
Correct.
showcase your product and have that entire space to yourself, an entire box where just your bottle is being visible, and you can easily educate the consumer. You tap on my bottle, you go to the page, you read what mead is, you read who no label is, what the details are, what my how many calories I have, what's the alcohol percentage. A lot of people do not know what ABV is, alcohol by
Yes.
volume. I can educate the consumer. Alcohol by volume, 7%. This is what it means. Right? So it just makes everybody's life so much more easier. The consumer is not having to take another step to go and learn meat kya hoti hai, what is ABV, what am I drinking. While the Gen Z is very fast and upfront about it, that I can look up anything and everything. This might just solve a lot of problems for brands and products, and for the consumer to just be more educated about what they're drinking.
Correct. Absolutely. Like I was not aware what meat is. So I just,
Yeah.
Googled and understand, okay, honey is involved. It's something
Yes.
new. I was not aware
Yes.
of.
Yeah.
Great, great. So, we did a survey last year. And based on that survey, we found that drinks. So, a majority of younger alcohol drinkers consider a company's sustainability or environmental initiatives before purchase of alcohol. If that is
Hmm.
placed well as an awareness campaign in the market, and
Correct.
they are aware, do you think this customer mindset would negatively impact the market share of traditional businesses
Could you define
if
traditional
done rightly?
businesses for me? No, could you define traditional businesses for me, please?
So, when I say traditional, it simply means the brands which are like you gave example of Colgate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Colgate is still there in the market because generations have been using it, right? There's nothing new as such. If you really look
Hmm.
into and dissect it, there's nothing as such improved or new. But we have
Hmm.
observed that the market has been, you know, there is a particular share which they are carrying in India, and it has a brand
Yeah.
value. The grandmothers and mothers is still using
Correct.
Colgate, correct? So
Correct.
that way, if the new generation, because when we interact or conduct these survey with younger population, they are very inquisitive about trying new things, whether it's food
Mm-hmm.
or beverages or clothes, or they're more
Correct.
aware. So that way, if the awareness or the campaigns or the positioning is right, so like I can give you an example. I was just hanging out with couple of what do you call Generation Z, and they gave me a lot of brands names which I was not aware of, right?
Hmm.
Because they're more inquisitive. They were aware, okay, they are, it's a social initiative. XYZ brand plants a tree, post every purchase. And I think this is good. So these are the initiatives which, even we are not aware of, or the older population or the older brands are not positioning themselves as. So, for
Yeah.
example, if somebody comes with all these ideas and it is placed well, what impact on the scale of 10 it would have on, that target audience?
I think one, when the government specifically in India decided to introduce or adopt CSR, right? It was to encourage people to do good, encourage brands and companies to do good. The second leg comes from brands recognizing this opportunity to position themselves as people who understand that there are problems and challenges in your environment and cater to a very emotional side to their consumers, right? Um, if I am a consumer who chooses Pepsodent over Colgate, for example, or maybe alcohol Lelo. If I choose, for example, a Simba beer over a Lone Wolf, right? Is that decision going to be driven by their CSR initiatives? Probably not, because I am drinking and eating something. There are too many parameters that come there, which on priority, CSR is going to be very, very low. Am I not going to have a beer which tastes amazing? Perceived value is great, packaging is amazing, brand value is amazing beyond CSR. Am I then not going to have that beer? Am I then going to have another beer which is planting a lot of trees? I am not sure about that. But as a brand, it is your vision and your mission that drives you to do all of these things beyond a great product. I am not sure if consumer behavior specifically in F&B changes because of this. I am not sure. I don't believe it does. When it comes to fashion, when it comes to luxury, when it comes to purchasing bags, shoes, of course it does. Because and there's a there's a certain level of competence that each brand offers. A Louis Vuitton offers something different from a Gucci, both in terms of brand perception and brand value, and the material that they offer, and the design that they offer, and so on and so forth. While you will have loyalists for each, it might just be driven by, okay, you use animal leather, I will not use this bag. Or you're not doing good enough, or this is not recyclable packaging, I will not use you, right? But in F&B, I don't think that happens, to
So,
the best of my
according to
knowledge or
you, as you
understanding.
are also involved in strategies,
Right.
how do you decide on the market price that you have to offer? Right. So, we have seen brands like Bira, which came a couple of years back, has become very big, huge brand in India, and
Yeah.
they are somewhere near to the other available brands average
Correct.
cost. So when you decide, or this question is not particularly for you, but if somebody is wanting to enter into this market, or they want to launch a new brand of a beer or alcohol, how an organization decides on the pricing strategies?
So there are multiple layers that go into it, because this is alcohol. Excise has a huge role to play. Your cogs have a huge role to play. What ingredients are you using in your product? The second layer probably would be, what volumes are you producing? Alcohol is all about volumes. If you're making, especially in RTD, I would say, if you're not producing at a certain level, you will be a loss making to a great extent. If you're not meeting your targets, if you do not have big enough targets, you will lose money. Pricing becomes a factor of all of these things. What ingredient are you using? Because there's flavor for everything. There's artificial flavor for literally every ingredient. This came to my knowledge literally 6, 7 odd months ago when I joined. I did not know that caramel is not always caramel. There is caramel caramel flavors. It will taste like caramel, it's not caramel, right? So are you using those? Cost will be less, works for you, you can price it lower. But if you're using original flavors, if you're using, for example, we do use passion fruit extract in our passion fruit meat, right? That does one give you that premiumness. It will reflect in the taste to some extent, or the feel of it, right? And as a company, you make that decision. Pricing becomes, what are your ingredients that you're using? What are the cogs after that? What are your packaging costs like? Are you using a normal cap on the bottle? Are you using a ring pull cap on the bottle? That will affect your cogs. Third is going to be your excise, because the taxes in the industry are so high. You will have to assess whether you will now position your product as a premium product, or a semi premium product, or an extra premium product, because your cost cannot be very low unless you're producing great volumes. Economies of scale, true strength of economies of scale is what I've learned in RTDs, in alcohol, right? So while you can decide that, okay, maybe for the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I will be loss making, but this is the segment that I want to target, and I will bear these losses, and I will price it maybe 100 rupees, 110 rupees, or 60 rupees for that matter. The cheapest beer that I've ever come across in the northern India, at least in the Delhi NCR region, is 60 rupees for a 330 ml bottle, right? So if as your business goals and your business allows you, your funds allow you to be in losses for the next 5 years, 6 years, whatever your future sort of sight is, line of sight is, then maybe yes, you can decide your price whatever you want. But if your goals are different and you say, okay, I have to be profitable in 3 years, I have to be profitable in 4 years, then you will drive, your price will be driven by your product and what category you want to put it in. Anything below 100 is going to be subpar and below semi premium. Anything between 100 to 130 is going to be semi premium. Anything above 130 is going to be premium. So you take a call whether you are doing artificial flavors, you can very well put it under 130 and it will align with that segment as well. If you're catering to the semi premium segment, they will probably not care about artificial flavor or pure flavor, right? Where you're getting your flavors from. But if you're a premium and you're pricing yourself at 150, you better have the best of ingredients. You better have the best of packaging. Your label cannot be coming off and so on and so forth. So while there is COGS, ingredients, everything that inherently drives your cost, you can very well decide the price based on the segment that you're positioning your product in, right, or the target audience that you're catering to.
Correct. So, according to you, how difficult is for any foreign brand of related to any alcoholic beverages to enter in India? Related to that, I have another question. If you can link both of these, what is the behavioral mindset of Indian consumer when it comes to indigenous brands versus a brand coming from outside India?
I think very generational to begin with, and put it as simply as I can. Post 1991, when liberalization and everything was there, foreign brands and important brands was so well recognized. Uh, people would love to own an imported brand. Nowadays, it's changed quite a bit because one, the newer generation, the younger millennials and the Gen Z, both I think recognize and understand value. I think self love is such a concept now and it's so well accepted and understood, which wasn't before. Self love comes from nation loving to, what are we making? How are we the best in the world as a nation, as companies that come out of India, the number of startups that have come up in India, right? So there's a lot of confidence in, okay, we can do good shit. We can do things well. We can make things well, from manufacturing to innovation, literally anything and everything, right? And we have proven it in the past 10 odd years. And that's why this love or recognition for domestic brands has seen a drastic sort of acceptance today as we sit in 2023, right? Craft was such a revolution in the past 5 to 6 odd years. Was there before? Recognition came in the past 5 6 years, where you have craft gins like Terai, you have craft gins like Greater Than, and they're doing exceptionally well. Consumers are loving them, right? They would not have a Bombay Sapphire. Nowadays, somebody who's starting their journey would probably go to a Bombay Sapphire because that's all that they've heard from their parents, right? But you'd have it twice, thrice, and the fourth time somebody would, just come and say, why are you drinking this? Have you not tried Terai? Have you not tried Greater Than? Right? And that's where the love or a sense of prestige comes in, that I am drinking craft. I am drinking, or I own homegrown brands. I have a bag from this brand that I saw on Instagram and I love it. Right? Nowadays, brands can come in. People love imported beers even today. How many, I wouldn't comment on that. I wouldn't know. I've not done that level of research. But there is a certain level of appreciation because people make good products outside as well. Why would you not want to have a German beer? You would, because it carries a certain level of tradition that beers were made in Germany. They make good beer and I would try it. So I don't think that entry is a problem. You just need to have the right set of goals And you need to see, okay, maybe I'll only have 1% market share. I can't be a disruptor when I come from the outside, because the market here has a strong hold over their consumers.
Okay.
And I think this appreciation for craft is just gone beyond any industry, so to say. It's in cosmetics, it's in F&B, it's in alcohol to a great extent. The number of homegrown brands that we've seen in the past years is insane. And I honestly love to be in this space where I can just try good alcohol made in India
Okay.
across
So,
spirits.
last question.
Yeah.
What have been your biggest challenge in terms of finding the marketing solution for any alcoholic brand or the brands which you are dealing with?
I think education.
So, creating the awareness, you mean?
I think creating brand awareness is secondary. Creating product awareness is the biggest challenge. When you're doing something new, while the consumer is open to learning, how many of them and how many of them want to learn about alcohol, right? It takes 1,600 people around you to talk about something, and that's when you would listen, because so many people are talking about so many things, right? When you see a content creator online, for example, they're endorsing literally 60 odd brands in a week. There is so much information, there is so much newness, uniqueness to everything that people are doing, because they're doing a job really well. They're innovating really well across industries, but there's so much innovation out there for the consumer. What do they want to learn about? Like nowadays, people want to learn about cosmetics. What am I putting on my face, right? This chemical, this acid works, this doesn't work, this is for sensitive skin, this is for oily skin. That education has reached a certain level thanks to content creators, thanks to brands having taken that initiative, right? In alcohol, the setting that you consume alcohol in is too casual. You do not take it as seriously because it's a fun thing to do. Why would you want to introduce learning and education into it, right? There are a lot of gin trails that people do, gin trails, whiskey trails, beer trails, meat trails, right? Where you invite people to come sit, try this, if not learn about it, experience it. That's the marketing strategy to educate your consumers. This is not something that we're teaching you, we've created an experience for you to try, right? So that's one way to um tackle that challenge, so to say. But I think people do not want to learn as much when they're consuming alcohol. So many people do not know what goes into a cocktail. They would order a Negroni, they wouldn't always know what's a Negroni, right? It just tastes good for them. Especially the younger audience, like people above 35, 40, because one, they've been drinking for so many years. They have had those conversations or they have tried it so many times to now know कि बियर कैसी टेस्ट करनी चाहिए, लागर क्या होती है, स्टाउट क्या होती है, मीड क्या होती है, कार्बोनेटेड मीड भी होती है, स्टिल मीड भी होती है, राइट? वेरी फ्यू पीपल नो अबाउट इट, बट द यंगर जनरेशन इज मोर अबाउट perceived value of the brand. If it's relatable, like you spoke, right? Sustainability is a factor for them. Is that
Correct.
product related? No. Is that product education? No. It's perceived value of what the other person is doing beyond their product. So a lot of people buy clothing brands not just because of the fabric. Six brands can offer me that fabric. One is the design part of the brand, fair. What you're trying to portray with that brand, what perception are you trying to create with the text on the brand? And then comes, okay, what does your store look like? What do the founders talk about? And so on and so forth, right? So, alcohol, biggest challenge, I think keeping aside excise and regulation, that becomes a part of your job. You get a hang of it and you say, okay, this is my playing field. I am going to strategize within these boundaries because that's how much I have. But when it comes to talking to your consumer, especially when you're introducing a new product, education is, I think, a challenge.
So, how are the marketing, because it's a related question again, how are the marketing budgets allocated? So, we discussed about, what is the biggest challenge, and we discussed about the challenges and, how we can solve this. So,
Right.
with such difficulties, how an organization decides on the marketing budget to be spent and to create an awareness to hit any market, North India, East India, West India, etc. So how do you decide that?
So I think alcohol first consideration is always your volumes and distribution. It has to be a business driven strategy. Your marketing strategies will come from your business goals. Otherwise, you will just move around as a headless chicken. You will try to teach the consumer, but you wouldn't know the scope of it, right? So the allocation of budget comes at a much, at least for marketing, comes at a much later stage. You keep a good enough portion saying, okay, maybe I would only require 10% given the product that I'm introducing in the category that I'm introducing. Or you like, okay, 40% needs to be allocated to marketing given what my business goals are. What is the volume that I want to achieve? What are the markets that I want to distribute it in, right? If I'm doing just 6,000 odd cases in two markets, won't justify anything because volume driven gain, right? If I'm expanding to two states or six states or seven states, distribution driven understanding is required. So it has to come from top to bottom saying, okay, these are my business goals. Making the product available is the most important thing. Then comes the discovery in the marketing bit. And then you'll be like, okay, now that the consumer has seen my product, how am I interacting with them? So the marketing budget is never strict saying, okay, 20% should ideally go in brand awareness or this much should go in doing your events and so on and so forth, right? You would see a lot of optimizing e-commerce is now a mantra. Somebody would come on Instagram and say, okay, put 20% in performance marketing, 20% here. Doesn't work. It for me, the rule doesn't work because you each is different depending on their business goals. What are you trying to achieve? On the
Right.
basis of that, would you be like, okay, now this is my marketing budget. Okay, what is my first priority? What are my three pillars? Is discovery important for me? Yes. Is it a priority? Maybe yes, maybe no. And depending on that, you will allocate your budgets accordingly.
Perfect. Great. I think my questions will never end. When I have conversation, then I have another question in loop.
Okay.
So let's just ask one last question, and
Sure.
it's up to you. You want to answer it, you don't want to answer it. Uh,
Mhm.
so you must have tried various strategies because I know when you run a startup and it's new, you are working on investors' money, and that so many things going on.
Of course.
You hit and trial, right? So,
Yeah.
specifically focusing on the branding and marketing part, where do you feel you have failed? And it can be a tip for the viewers, which
Hmm.
should be your experience, and which they learn that this is a strict no no.
Yeah. Oh, lovely question. And I hope that people see this and probably learn from it or at least take some inspiration from it. Okay. So, one thing that I learned in my first 3 months was that you need to be able to survive and survive well. Never go, your milestone should not go beyond 6 months or 1 year. You need to assess, keep short term goals, set milestones. Okay, quarterly milestones are this. If this is met, then we will do this. If this is not met, we will see what to do. Or have a B plan. If it's not meant that we will do this, right? Do not go planning for the entire, while you should have a vision. Do not go doing everything to achieve something at the end of the year. Achieve something that is required to be done to survive and do it well in the next 3 months. If you're allocating budgets, for example, do not spend on something that you would require 1 year later. There's no point blocking that money. You do not know how the market would change in 3 months, whether the feedback is great, average, or below average. Do you need to tweak something? Do you need to change something? Is the feedback good or bad? Right? So you might, in a startup, when you're starting or doing something new with a brand, set short term milestones, short term goals, take feedback. It is upon you whether you think, okay, this is going to change, or maybe this is too small a pool for this feedback. Maybe I want to go another 3 months and see, okay, what's the feedback like, and then tweak it or not tweak it, whether it changes or doesn't change. So don't go thinking or doing everything 1 year, 2 year. This is where we see ourselves in 3 years. Great to have a vision. You should have that. But don't start taking action on something that you would want to do in the third year. Do something that would make change in the next 3 months, next 6 months. While
And
your
just a
fundamentals are
complimentary question.
sorry.
Just
Yeah.
so sorry to interrupt you. Just a complimentary
No.
question. So, what is this short, successful strategy
Hmm.
applicable for alcoholic beverages market? Let me just turn around the question.
So it can differ with company to company, brand to brand, whether your spirit, whether your RTD can change with that, whether you are a rum or a beer or a meat can change with that. Whether you want to be a three-state company or a pan-India company can change with that. I will stick to what we sort of operate in. Short term, we always believe we want people to try our product always has to be your hero. You will build brand advocates if your mind and heart, and I would say it again, mind and heart is in the right place. You have to have the right vision behind your brand. You have to have a meaning for why you are doing what you're doing, both with the product and the brand. And it will translate into you, reaching out to your consumers or them becoming brand advocates or loving you for what you are doing
So,
beyond
your
your
mission
product.
and vision should be very clear, right? That can be a
Yeah,
tool which
that's a
can be used
fundamental.
in the marketing. Yeah.
That is a fundamental. It and you whether, for example, sustainability, everybody talks about it a lot. You are a startup, you have just started, maybe you cannot get the most sustainably sourced bottles. Maybe you cannot afford to pay 20 rupees instead of 10 rupees. Not a problem. What else can you do in sustainability? If it is a pillar of your brand, if it is something that you have chosen as a fundamental, you must start from day zero because you have to be true to what you're doing, and it translates to your consumer as well. They're not foolish. They will understand that they will believe in what you're trying to do, even if it's 10% of what you want to do. Maybe you're a $1 million company in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then you can do all 100% of it, right?
Absolutely.
But from a more consumer perspective, for us, it was all about making a great product, right? Doing something non-traditional was a core pillar that we had. It was a vision that we would do not want to do traditional alcohol. We want to do different things, newer things that the people have not experienced so far.
Yeah.
So our short-term goals were always reach out to as many consumers as we can. We've done the same digitally, whether it is reaching out to people saying, okay, maybe we'll give you free passes to come and check us out at Grub if you're doing an event, right? And those 3 4 people then would become your brand advocates. Okay, I went as an invitee for this particular brand and I've tried their product and it's great or it's not great, up to them. But we were always like, first trials is our goal for the next 1 year, and we tried to set benchmark. Okay, 3 events still in the first quarter, 6 events in the second quarter, so on and so forth. These many people in the first quarter, 1,000 people in the second quarter, 1,500 people in the third quarter. So that's how you set your milestones. But your goal has to be very focused and easily understandable to your people within the company. That's what I
So,
would
if I
suggest.
have to summarize it, reaching out to the your consumer group in terms of volumes, as many
Yeah,
number as possible. Brilliant.
correct. Correct.
Cool.
You
I
can't
think
leave your product to just be out there. It has to be, you have to get people to try your product. It's very difficult to tell somebody to just play a bet on whether you will like it or not. So we always made an effort to reach out to consumer direct interactions as many as there can be, because we came up with a new category, new product. So ours was just like first trials was our short term goal everywhere.
cool. Good. So I think it was a wonderful interaction with you, Harsha. We discussed about a lot of things, and I think
Thank you.
whosoever will watch this interview in parts or in completion, they will definitely get something out of it.
Thank you so
Wonderful,
much, Indu.
lovely
Thank you.
interacting with you. I think we'll get
It
in
was
touch
lovely
again
talking to
soon.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much. It was a lovely interaction.
Have a lovely evening. Bye bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye.